Hey, welcome to the podcast. As you know, some things that are old are new again, and some things that are new are old again. And Vipin and I have been doing a podcast together now for just about 2 years, and I think next month would be 2 years exactly. Is that right, Vipin?
Yeah, end of March is when we started, yeah.
So here's the deal, is that we've had this podcast called Fall, Rise, Give that we've done 75, 76 episodes of. And, you know, as you've listened to it, you've noticed that there's been a change of focus over the course of the last year or so. And due to brainstorming and some of the things that Vipin's working on, we decided to rebrand, redo, and renew the podcast. And the new name, you want to share the name, or would you like me to share it?
Yeah, Manifest 360 is our new name. It's, yeah. Pretty exciting.
Let's talk about where we were and where we're going, because when we started things off, we started this off as a passion project for you, and it's turned into even more so of a passion project for you.
Yeah. It's just getting clarity, as you get, not as you get, as I get more clarity on what I want to achieve, what I wanted to ultimately do, and what I feel is the right path for us, and it's ultimately getting clarity. So the reason this podcast started was to help promote a book that I was writing. That was the first clear. A friend of mine had recommended that, hey, not everybody reads, maybe a podcast would be helpful to help promote your message in the book. And so that's why we started it. The book at the time, we were thinking would be called Fall, Rise, Give, and then and it had its course. We veered off a little bit into people falling through addiction and recovery, and we had lots of friends who'd come and join us on the recovery path. And while that was important, it wasn't the complete picture of what I wanted to do. And so what happened in the last 6 months is I've gotten clarity. I've got a literary agent from a big agency in New York. I have been getting more clarity, and I've finished the book proposal, and I've got much more clarity around what I want to achieve. And then as part of that, and promoting the new book, and what I realized is that there's a lot of noise around manifesting. A lot of people think it's foo-foo, weird stuff. So we wanted to come to the table with science-backed manifesting techniques and how to manifest series. And so I believe the word manifest itself is very powerful, but sometimes has a connotation that is a little foo-foo out there. And so we have been in my family talking about manifesting for over a decade. The reason being is a member of our family is really good at manifesting. And we've talked about that person in the past, so not to get into that. But I have been studying this for a long time, and I think the word means a lot. And it basically means to me is making a reality of what you want in financial situations, money, manifesting money, in relationships, which I think are probably really important to us, which is manifesting the right type of relationship, health, manifesting the health that we want to have. People want to lose weight or get fitter or get healthier. Those are the three main areas. And I tend to want to focus on expertise around money, being a business person and having done some interesting things, as we've talked about, not to reiterate those. But there's a path and there is a clarity that everybody wants around money, right? It's an uncomfortable topic for a lot of people. And so we wanted to talk about how we manifest more money and abundance and wealth in our lives. And we've talked about the 7 chakras in the past, and aligning our chakras and our energy to serve a purpose and for prosperity is kind of the key still. We've always kind of danced around those words, but it's just gotten much more clear on that now. And so we've been talking for the last 4 to 5 months around discussions on how do we achieve our goals, how do we get clarity in our purpose, how do we align with the chakras from the root chakra, which is about stability and security, all the way up to the 7th chakra, which is about abundance and gratitude. So we worked through those a number of times. We've been talking about chakras since day one, because that's been the main formula as part of it. And so we're not going to leave that behind. We are just going to get tighter on how chakras as an energy source help us align to our purpose and then to prosperity.
It's funny because last week we talked a little bit at the end about being you and just being yourself. And you said, well, let's kind of hit on that a little bit next week. And so this kind of all ties into that, actually, because, I mean, if we want to be ourselves and our true selves, we're really just kind of following the path that we had set in the past and, moving on and moving forward with just being ourselves.
Yeah, and there's different layers of who we are, right? And there is the basic rational human doer living in a rational world in a physical environment, having a job, having a relationship, having to take care of your body. So there's the physical body component of it, right? Then there is the emotional body and what makes up our emotional system. How do we manage our emotions? Oftentimes the subconscious leads us in a lot of ways. There is some brain chemicals like serotonin and dopamine and all these things that impact our emotions and our thoughts. So from an emotional standpoint, and there's an intellectualization about thinking and thinking in a macro level about our thinking about thinking, right? That's what separates human beings, is that we can think about our thinking, what they call metacognition. And then there is the spiritual part. The spiritual part is fascinating. I'm a highly spiritual person. You and I talked about faith in the past. We don't preach or talk about a particular faith in this podcast or align to it. I've used words like God. I've used words like universe, energy. All of those things combine something outside of ourselves. And there's a higher power beyond us, whatever that is. You define it for yourself. But I think a level of faith is required to believe in that. And a lot of scientists and people like Einstein and Tesla and others have kind of, even Stephen Hawking, the great physicist, talked about he wanted to read the mind of God, right? The universe in a sense. So a lot of experts have concluded that there is some sort of a universal intelligence out there, and I believe in it. And so those are the four main components: the physical body, the emotional body, the intellectual body, and then the spiritual body. And so how we align all of those, I believe, is through an energy system in our being. And the chakras help us with that. And essentially, we need to align all four of those. But we can't just go to a esoteric enlightenment world of, spiritual enlightenment without leaving in the fact that we have to eat, we have to move our body, we have to live in shelter and leave to have all this. So the whole thing needs to work. None of these four things are more important than the other. There's a balance in all of these, I think, as human beings. So as we peel the layers of onions, we try to use tools from all four of these to start to understand who the real you is. What's the spiritual you? What's the emotional you? What's the intellectual you? What's the physical you? What are your physical needs? And so that's how I've started thinking about it, and I try to live in alignment with all four of these.
Sometimes balance is a hard thing to figure out, though. I mean, I know that we've read and we've heard of people saying that when they're on their deathbed, when they're old and decrepit and laying there, and they're a lot of people say, "Well, I wish I would have spent more time doing this, or I wish I would have spent more time doing that." Now is the time to actually take the reins and say, "You know what? I'm going to try to have a more work-life balance and a more balance toward spending more time with my family, doing this, that, or the other thing, the things that are important to you rather than the things that you feel like you need to do at the moment." Am I kind of on your wavelength there, or
totally.
am I wrong?
So we spend, as human beings, I know I do, a lot of time and energy. What I've heard as a word or a phrase is future tripping, thinking about the future. And future tripping is really just thinking about the future and what could go wrong or what could go right. I spend a lot of our time thinking that way, and a lot of anxiety and fear and doubt and or aspirations and ambition and things on the positive side come into being. And so we think about the future, and then we oftentimes carry with us kind of a programming from the past. I heard someone say, some book or something in the last few months say that almost all of our innate subconscious is learned by the time we're 8 years old. And we create,
Makes
yeah.
sense.
And by the time we're 8 years old, we've kind of programmed our map to get where we want to go. And it's really hard to change that programming to open minded. That's why people who are brought up in poverty and or the other spectrum of wealth, they tend to think and be in a certain way, and that's why they, you've heard, and I talked about lotteries and things like that, and people who win the lottery and make a lot of money within a decade or so will lose almost all of their tens of millions that they get in the lottery.
Okay, well, you just said a word a little bit ago. So it actually triggered a word that my dad used to always say, the word awfulizing. We tend to awfulize things when we look into the future. Instead of trying to see the good things, we sometimes see the bad things and the steps that will, oh, well, maybe I'll not do this and maybe I won't be able to do this. And my dad always called that awfulizing.
Yeah, that's a good word. We tend to awfulize based on our experience and based on our
Yeah.
subconscious beliefs that are really taught to us by our upbringing, right? Upbringing could be your family, it could be your community, it could be your culture, it could be your country, not just the regional part of your country, but it's part of the psyche that gets programmed.
Your religion, it could be your religion and everything. I mean,
Totally,
it could be your religion, it could be your, just your people that are around you, that your community.
totally, totally, totally. It's really hard to change programming. That's how people talk about change. You can't really change as much as you can uncover the layers of who you truly are and understand who you really are and what you've always wanted or what you always wanted to be, not just do. So understanding yourself, I believe there's an innate nature of each individual, that from childhood that they were either afraid to do or really wanted to do, and some sort of a innate love for a thing. For me as a little kid, I always wanted to be an author. I always wanted to write a book. And, we're talking on a podcast. It's a modern version of how people read books today. It's a podcast. How people interact with intellectual knowledge today isn't just through books. It isn't just through podcasts, also through apps, right? Apps, and now people are talking to ChatGPT, and AI is getting in the heads a lot with a new version of that's been around for the last week or so. A lot of discussions in politics and government and technology is Claude and Anthropic, which has come out of nowhere, and it hasn't come out of nowhere for some of us that are in the technology world, but it's getting in the consumer psyche that, hey, there's this really cool tool. ChatGPT kind of opened up the world a couple of years ago, and then Copilot and Google Gemini came in, and people only in the technology world knew about Anthropic. And now, so anyway, so all this intelligence slash interaction with understanding who you are, people are talking about how to understand who you are. They're interacting with AI, asking it questions, and AI is turning around asking us questions on how you want to be. And so it's new ways of learning how to be who you truly are is being uncovered, is what I'm saying. And understanding who you are, you really have to think in the moment and really forget about the past and really forget about the future. And be in the moment right now is the hardest thing to do, is to just focus on the moment and now. Like, what is it that my thoughts are telling me to do to be in this moment or just for today, rather than just thinking about future tripping of years from now and or being anxious from the past of what you thought about or what you experienced. It's really hard for our minds, our intellectual, emotional self to be just thinking of the now. There's a book I told you about a long time ago that I didn't fully understand by a guy named Eckhart Tolle called The Power of Now. And I never lived in the now. I never knew what that was like. And the book came out like 20 years ago. And I didn't like the book. I wasn't in a space to appreciate the present moment. And now I am. I'm much more conscious of, okay, what is the universe telling me? What is my mind telling me? What is my body telling me right now to do today? to do in the next hour. And I'm able to adjust my schedule, my behavior to meet that. For example, this morning we normally start our podcast recording at 8:30. I got up and I said, let's do it at 8 today. That's what my body is telling me. My intellectual is telling me, let's get it done so I can do certain things today and accomplish certain tasks and be in such a way to just focus on the right ways today that I want to achieve. On a Sunday when we record it, I have a busy schedule, which is odd, but it's not work. It's kind of the fun schedule, but it's still a schedule.
Yeah, but I'm glad that you said fun, because a lot of people don't have fun. A lot of people don't make the time to enjoy life and the things around them. Let's kind of turn our attention a little bit to manifesting, since we did rename the podcast Manifest 360 based on the app that you have, manifest360.app. Let's talk about the real magic of manifesting and, the kind that actually works. I know we've talked about your daughter being able to be like the manifest queen, that she thinks it's something and pretty soon it happens. Yeah. I mean, how can somebody, so young have that happen, and somebody old like us or middle-aged like us, we try to manifest things and, it ends up having a broken hip.
Yeah, no doubt, or a broken back, like in my case, right? This week. Yeah, it's amazing. So before we get there, just so basically, I forgot the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That was the 5 pillars, right? Basic needs need to be met.
Right.
Then family, community needs, then Uber needs, and then self-realization, realizing who you are. As part of the process, as you get older, you start to actualize. And a lot of people can't actualize what they want to be or do. So manifesting for me, and as the app says, there are 3 things that are really important. One is figuring out who you are and what you want. So that's the first one. What you want for a lot of people can be very difficult to understand. And this is what I was talking about. There's an innate desire, an innate wanting that we've had since we were a child. I believe that's true. And how we get to it may change. We may want to just focus on a job for a decade, and we may want to just focus on a college for the first 4 years to get what we want. But innate, there's some sort of a desire deep down that we've always had to kind of uncover that, right? So what it is that we want. And the second thing is really important is, and in that want, you have to understand why we want the thing that we want, right? And so why is that important to us? Have we always longed for it because of fame? Is it because of fortune? We wanted to make money. We wanted to have a life of abundance. Or is it power? We wanted to have control over our lives, our destiny, our situation that we didn't have control as a kid, or control over his family. So, and control could be a thing of freedom. We wanted to have freedom, right? So what it is, what you want, and why do you want it is the first step. The second thing, the app helps you clarify. So it's, what's your purpose? Based on the purpose, your goals, right? You can take surveys and quizzes in there, purpose-driven goals. There's AI that helps you do that. So I'm not selling the app as much as I'm selling the structure, the framework on how to manifest. First is knowing what you want and why do you want it. Second is creating a mental picture of that thing that you want in as much detail as possible. Hence comes the people that have talked about vision boards, right? So we built a vision board in the app. But I have struggled, and I'll be very honest, I have struggled for over a decade. I read 3 books I told you about a long time ago. One of them was called The Art of Visualization. And a lot of people struggle to visualize what they want. A house, a car, a relationship, place they want to live, place they want to travel to. Those things can be very hard to visualize because oftentimes it's hard to visualize something that you don't think you can get. So there's a big block there, right? So we're like, I can't get the dream house because I don't have that kind of money. I can't get a job. I don't know how I'm going to get all this money to do that. So huge block in that, visualizing what you want. So that's where the tool in the app helps you right away. So the vision board, right? You ask 6 questions, and within a matter of 30 to 60 seconds, it'll develop a vision board for you based on these questions. The third thing and the most important thing is taking the right action. And that action we get stuck on because we don't know where to do what we do and what we need to do. It's the what we want to do and what we need to do and how to do it. It's that action step. People are like, well, let's take action. You don't know what action to take. It's really hard. It's hard for me, and I think about things that I want to manifest and things that I'm driven by, and I worked pretty hard yesterday on the app and other things and marketing and things like that, and it's really hard to figure out what you want. That's why, or what you act on. That's where things like the chakras or intuition or higher power come in. Being in the present, thinking, meditating, praying, and asking your higher self, the universe intelligence, what should you act today? What small action can you take today? So that's kind of how manifestation works.
Is it about organizing your thoughts, or is it, how do you ask those questions, or how do you know where to ask those questions, or what to even bring up sometimes?
Yeah, that's why it's a structural process. We talked about getting to know yourself, right? How do you know yourself? What do I like? What's my passion? And then what do I value? You and I both value family quite a bit. You and I both value financial freedom quite a bit. You and I value our time, our community. We're social beings, so we like social interaction. You and I value traveling. You just went to New Zealand. I went to Ireland last year at this time. And so for me, the biggest thing is asking yourself these questions, but you can't ask these questions if you're future tripping or if you're historical tripping, right? Thinking about the past and getting stuck in the past. So being in the present, pausing, and that's when I talked to you earlier on when I was building the app. It's like, 5 to 10 minutes is all you need. Every single day at night for the reflection that I was talking about. We talked about being calm, centered, and loving. And we talked about those emails that I was sending to myself every night that I'm still doing is a reflection of what am I proud of today? What am I insecure about today? And then ultimately, what can I improve? And what am I grateful for?
You said 5 or 10 minutes, and I'm sorry to interrupt in the middle of your talking here, but 5 to 10 minutes is easy to do in our lives. I mean, how much time do we waste watching something on television or scrolling through Facebook or sitting in the office twiddling your thumb sometimes, or you're wasting. We waste so much time in our lives that 5 or 10 minutes is nothing. And I just wanted to throw that out there because somebody's like, I don't have the time to do that. I call BS. There's 5 or 10 minutes in your day. You're not that jam-packed to stuff that you can't spend 10 minutes on something to self-improve yourself.
Yeah. And we get stuck doing stuff. We get stuck being certain things and watching certain things. Most people spend 2 to 3 hours on social media in the U.S. Most people spend, if they don't spend on social media, they spend on watching TV. Some sort of an entertainment 2 to 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
How many times do you sit around? Let's just look at you and me. How many times do you sit around for 5 minutes and just think about what it is that you want, what it is that you are, and how are you going to go about achieving it?
Are you asking me that? Because I do that a lot.
Okay,
but that's because I'm doing the stuff that I want to be doing in life.
Yeah.
But when I was younger, I didn't spend any time thinking about myself or any of that stuff. I mean, I really think that in the last 2 years of doing this podcast that my focus has changed, and I'm thinking more about it, like we've talked about the manifestation, the calm, centered, loving. I can really feel a change in myself just from just from listening and being a part of the podcast.
Yeah, and we're interacting, right? We're thinking about these things.
Yeah, like-minded.
We totally are. So we're interacting intellectually about these things and bringing up our real thoughts and challenging ourselves and being the really growth orientated about, asking these questions. And we have to know what we're talking about if we're going to pass on a message to someone else. So you're right. I spent a lot of time thinking about it. You spend more time thinking about it now more than ever. And that's ultimately what I don't think a lot of people do. And I don't think they know how to ask themselves the right questions. Who am I? What do I want? Why do I want what I want? Can I make a mental picture of what I want? What are the normal steps that I can take to start that business or take that vacation or go after a relationship that I want? So all these little things, we can spend 5 to 10 minutes is all we need to do. You can spend more if you want. Some people meditate for a couple hours a day and think about getting in touch with the higher self. I meditated for like an hour and a half yesterday, but there were 2 days this week that I didn't get a chance to meditate. I took time out and breathed and prayed in the morning, which I always do, but I spent an hour or so meditating every day, and twice this week I didn't do it. I ran out of time. I just commitments that I had to do, commitments that I wanted to do. Spend time with family, spend time at work, spend time with friends. Mm-hmm. And so really getting back to this manifestation thing, most people, if they ask the right questions of themselves, they can ask and they can answer questions of who they are, what do they want, why do they want it. The second step of creating a mental picture is very hard to do. And that's why the vision board feature is prominent on Manifest360.app, right? That's really hard. And then the third thing is, how am I going to take action on it? And taking action on it, you kind of need to know what to do, and you kind of need to figure out a plan. And again, those goals that you help decipher from a purpose, they help you identify steps that you can take. So our tools help you do that. And then the spiritual part of it, that we talk about, meditation and mantras and things like that, help you figure that out. The book will talk more details on a daily plan of doing that. But right now, in the app, there's daily reflections that you can do. There's acting for 5 to 10 minutes that you can take part in. And so it's not promoting the app, but 3 basic things we got to do every single day. We got to figure out what it is that we want. Why do we want it? Like your son had that clear written piece of paper, had in his pocket. What did he want? Why did he want it? Had a picture of it in the paper that he wrote down, and then he took action on it. And it's easy to take action once you're clear on why it is that you want something. And so that's really the manifestation. The hardest part is the last part that we talked. I sent you a message earlier today. The hardest part of getting what you want, maybe we'll talk more about that next week as we're running out of time, is actually believing that you can achieve what you want. And so to act in a way that you know you're worthy, you're deserving, and you're actually able to get what you want. And the things that get in the way are doubt, fear, anxiety, and a lack of know-how. A lack of know-how is what keeps us from getting what we want. So we think we have to know all the answers today. How am I going to achieve this goal? And this is the right path. That isn't how life works. Life and the universe, intelligence gives us what we need to do today, just today, and maybe in the next week or the next couple of years or whatever. But we are not going to get our unfold path for the next 10 years. So it's important to figure out what the right action it is for today that you're going to take. And this is where the faith, purpose, prosperity comes in, right? So it's important to take a step back, 5 to 10 minutes a day, just reflect. What is it you want? Why do you want it? Mental picture, and take some action around it.
Break it into small pieces that you can digest and do, and that way you'll be able to be successful with your goals.
And maybe what we'll talk about next week is the biggest roadblock. It's not an easy foo-foo game. There's a science behind it. Knowing what you want, why you want it, mental picture, taking action, and then believing what you want. You have to believe that you are going to get it. Otherwise, you just won't take the right action.
And that wraps up this episode of Manifest 360. If today's conversation sparked something in you, don't just think about it, apply it. Alignment isn't a vibe, it's a practice. Belief, emotion, strategy, and action, all moving in the same direction, that's where momentum lives. Be sure to follow, share with someone building something meaningful, and join us next week as we continue helping you manifest wealth and purpose. Manifest 360 is a podcastforhire.com production.